Pokémon Detective Pikachu is a live-action animated hybrid film based on the Nintendo 3DS game of the same name. The story follows a young man named Tim, who's investigating his father's disappearance. Along the way, he encounters his father's Pikachu, and the two can somehow communicate with one another. They use this to their advantage as the two team up to solve the mystery. Growing up, I was a massive fan of the Pokémon franchise. I played the games, watched the shows and movies, and collected the cards. Pokémon was incredibly popular during my childhood, and the franchise remains a household name to this day. Even now, I find myself revisiting old games from time to time, picking up the latest entry in the series, and checking in on the anime to see what's new. But when this movie was announced, I had my doubts. Of all the various storylines to adapt, they went with a relatively obscure installment in the series. While not as bizarre as, say, the upcoming Tetris trilogy, this still had me scratching my head. And then the trailer came out, and my harsh dismissal of the film turned into gleeful optimism. This Detective Pikachu movie became something I was looking forward to, and now I can share my thoughts on the film as a lifelong fan of the property. Detective Pikachu is a delightful adventure in a wonderfully realized and organic setting. Rather than shying away from its zany roots, the film embraces this fictional reality where humans peacefully coexist with superpowered friendly monsters. This enthusiastic approach makes the world building of the picture super effective and one of its strongest aspects. We're shown how Rhyme City, the central location, functions as a society with all these marvelous Pokémon running around. There are numerous posters, advertisements, and references for various places and events happening outside the story of the film, further establishing an expansive world, of which we're only given a glimpse. I hope that future chapters in this new cinematic franchise explore these teased regions. As for the Pokémon themselves, well, what can I say, they're the scene stealers. They populate every corner of the screen, essentially making the film a grand-scale I Spy game. The Pokémon featured are pulled from each generation of the game's history, creating an eclectic smorgasbord of lovable beasts and critters that's a feast for the eyes. The adorable animals never wear on the viewer though, despite how many there are and how frequently they appear. They serve to flesh out the backgrounds and the diegesis, while also pleasing the copious fans that will no doubt see this during its theatrical run. The visual effects are top-notch, blending the human characters, futuristic atmosphere, and cartoonish creatures nicely. Rather than attempting a more realistic take on the Pokémon, the movie instead sticks with their traditional designs, only adding textures like fur and scales, and the result is dazzling. The film produces a Who Framed Roger Rabbit effect, in that no matter how crazy or exaggerated the animated characters look, it never pulls the viewer from the story. But of course, the star of the show is the eponymous Pikachu voiced by Ryan Reynolds. Reynolds is terrific in the role, bringing an appropriate amount of joviality and liveliness to the electric mouse. Opposite Reynolds is Justice Smith, playing the youthful Tim Goodman. Aside from a few questionable moments, Smith portrays him very well, excelling at the comedic bits especially. Catherine Newton co-stars, and though her character can be a tad over the top at times, Newton is a pleasure to watch, and she and Smith work together superbly. I do wish that Ken Watanabe and Bill Nighy had more to do, as their performances are not very effective given their screen time. But the main cast does come through and is able to elevate the film past this problem. As I was watching the film, I began to realize why the filmmakers chose to adapt Detective Pikachu and not one of the core titles, and it was a smart decision. The story of Detective Pikachu requires little to no prior knowledge of the series, making it very accessible for anyone. It's an enjoyable ride that combines several genres, including adventure, mystery, and even a hint of noir. The plot is straightforward and easy to follow, whether you've been a fan since day one, or if this is your introduction to the world of Pokémon. The movie also stays away from implementing some of the series' most identifiable features, such as type effectiveness, Pokémon teams, and advanced battle mechanics, in order to be more welcoming to the casual crowd. As for issues with the film, I have but a few. Unfortunately, the third act is astonishingly convoluted from a story perspective, with a ridiculous plan on the villain's part. It takes a strange turn that doesn't really mesh well with the tone. In concordance, the villain of the piece is awfully underdeveloped. The antagonist has barely any presence in the film and is ultimately underwhelming. Along with the wasted potential of some of the actors I mentioned earlier, these are the only negatives I came across. Pokémon Detective Pikachu offers plenty for those familiar with the nearly 25-year-old franchise, but also caters to newcomers, ensuring they don't get lost in this glorious new world. The story is playful and exciting, the characters are likable, and the Pokémon are charming and abundant, the highlight of the picture. A poorly handled antagonist, a couple of underused actors, and some third act stumbles hold the movie back a bit, but it's nothing too serious. Children and adults alike will have a splendid time experiencing Detective Pikachu. Definitely catch this film if you get the chance. I give Pokémon Detective Pikachu a B+. On a completely unrelated note, I never thought I'd see both a Home Alone and a Seinfeld reference in a live-action Pokémon movie, but here we are. So yeah, I enjoyed the film, but what did you think of it? Did it do the franchise justice? Was your favorite Pokémon included? Let me know your opinions in the comments section. And if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for similar content, as that would really help me out. See you in the next video.